This is episode 339 of Jumblethink.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Sean Swarner. More about Sean in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts, search for Jumblethink, and click subscribe. To make it even easier, if you head on over to jumblethink.com, you'll find links to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Google Play, well, pretty much everywhere. So head on over, subscribe to Jumblethink, and never miss an episode of the show. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a really special show lined up for you today. But before we dive into that, we want to thank our friends over at Floxy for sponsoring today's show. Whether you need graphic design, web development, and even video editing, they can help you at a low monthly subscription to the design, the development, or the editing you need. So head on over to Floxy, FLOCKSY.com/Jumblethink to learn more. I am super excited about today's guest. His name is Sean Swarner. If you know anything about me, you know that I love doing things and having dreams and having ideas. I have a bucket list that has a lot of crazy things on it. I've accomplished some. I have a lot more to go. When I looked over Sean's list of things he's accomplished, it was pretty amazing. He has summited Everest. He's reached both the North and South Pole. He's climbed the tallest mountains in every continent, which leads to the Explorer's Grand Slam, which is the highest peak in every continent and the North and South Pole. He's accomplished the Hawaiian Ironman. He's done a whole bunch of marathons. There's a documentary called True North about him. He's written 2 books. There's a lot he's accomplished, but that's not what's actually really impressive about his journey. What's impressive about his journey is he is a 2-time cancer survivor. He only has the function of one lung. When he was a teenager, was basically given days to live. The cancer statistically that he had the first time should have killed him, and the different cancer that came and attacked him the second time should have taken him out. It is a crazy story, and to see and hear how he's accomplished so much, it's just so fascinating. But beyond that, he's not just doing it for himself. He's doing it to be a spark of hope for others, for cancer survivors and those impacted by cancer around the world. So let's go ahead and join the conversation we had with today's guest, Sean Swarner. We are here with Sean Swarner. Sean, I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for being here, so thanks.
Yeah, I see you have the Colorado hat. Are you at your home base in, Littleton?
I lived in Littleton for years. I now live in Castle Rock. And long story short, my wife is from Puerto Rico, and I lived up near Breckenridge, which is a ski resort here. Yeah. And there's a huge difference between, the mountains where the snow is and the desert plains area, like the Denver area. And when she first moved in 4 years ago, we moved down here because I figured if someone was going to spend her first winter in her entire life in Colorado, it probably shouldn't be by a ski resort. So we moved down here where it's much more temperate. And we're still together, so I did something right.
Oh, awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And there are those people who face things that most people will never have to face. Although in the case of cancer, it seems like it's impacting more and more people as the years go on. For you, the story of cancer starts at a young age. Talk to us a little bit about that journey. And cancer took something from you, but it actually gave you a lot too.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. Going back to your first comment about cancer being everywhere, I've personally dubbed it a global epidemic. Wow. I mean, it does. It seems like it's everywhere. I've worked with organizations around the world, and one of the biggest ones now is Fight Cancer Global, and it's just unbelievable how many people are touched by this disease. But you're right too. It did take something from me, but like anything in life, it all depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn something around, something horrible around, and make it something amazing. But for me, people always ask, tell me your story. And jokingly, I'm like, well, my mom and dad got together 9 months later, and here I am.
Yeah.
My life kind of began when I was 13, and I distinctly remember going into the multi-purpose room, 8th grade, and we had these pegboards, where you hold these pegs in your hand, little holes in the board up against the wall, and I would climb up those. And for some reason, the teacher just didn't want to go get them that day. And I decided, okay, well, I want to go play basketball. So just like a pickup basketball game, coming down from a layup, I could hear the tendons and ligaments in my knees snapping.
Wow.
Kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. You're chewing on the turkey leg, like that. It was awful. I remember hobbling over and sitting down. About a week later, they diagnosed me with advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Wow.
And as a 13-year-old, they told my parents, hey, your firstborn son now has 3 months to live. So as an 8th grade, I had an expiration date.
Wow. But they didn't really tell you that either. That you didn't know that at the time. You just knew that you had cancer.
Exactly. So my mom's stepmother, she passed away about 3 months before I got diagnosed from cancer. And in my mind, as a kid, I'm thinking cancer equals death.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't want me to think that.
Wow.
Because my grandma passed away from cancer. They didn't want to tell me, hey, Sean, you have cancer. And they didn't want me to have that association of cancer equals death.
Right.
So they just told me that I was sick.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, you were young at one point a long time ago.
Yeah.
Just like me. You're curious.
Yeah.
You're nosy. Your doctors are running in and out of the hospital room. Mom and dad aren't the typical mom and dad that you've known for the past 13 years. I'm sure it was traumatic on them. So I decided to do some research, and I was like, what the hell is Hodgkin's disease? And I found out that it was cancer.
Wow. Crazy. So you beat that. It's a horrible experience, although you get on the other side, but that's not the end of your cancer story.
Not at all. You're right. It was a horrible experience. And I remember I was 60 pounds overweight, bald from head to toe. And there was one moment where my hair all fell out. And I remember going into the shower, washing my head and pulling my hands down, and my hands were covered with hair. And I collapsed to the shower floor and literally on my hands and knees, crying my eyeballs out while I was pulling chunks of hair out of the drain so the water could go down. And, here I am thinking about what my friends were going through getting ready for school that day. You remember the Reebok pump?
Yeah. Had them. Loved them.
So I'm thinking at that point, Jerry, my neighbor across the street, a couple houses down, he's probably worried about the nicest shoes, the nicest clothes, and he's getting ready for school going, 26, 27, 28, 29 pumps, good to go.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about not waking up the next morning.
Wow.
But like you said, it wasn't this. It was the beginning. It wasn't the end. I was going in for a checkup for the first cancer when they found a second cancer, two primary cancers. And this time around, they diagnosed me. This is crazy. They diagnosed me with a type of cancer that affects 3 out of a million people with a prognosis of 6%.
Wow.
So if you have 100 people with this type of cancer, 94 die.
Yeah.
And the chances of me, I'm actually the only person in the world to have ever had Hodgkin's and Askins sarcoma. And the chances of me surviving both of those illnesses is equivalent to winning the lottery 4 times in a row with the same numbers.
Wow. That's crazy.
So if you know anything about numbers, and I'm not too good at numbers because they told me I was given 3 months to live, then 14 days to live for the second cancer. I'm like, I'm not that good with numbers, so I'm just going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
But the second time around, I lost the function of my right lung. I was in a medically induced coma for about a year, and
Wow.
I don't remember being 16 years old.
Wow. So while most kids were getting their permits and driver's license, you're out. You have no remembrance of it at all.
I don't. I went through 3 months of intense chemo, then 1 month of radiation therapy, and I have memories of that month. It's kind of like what I guess an alcoholic would call a moment of clarity. So I had that month that was like a moment of clarity, And then I went through 10 more months of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anything about being 16, almost 17 years old, except for that 1 month. And that was the month that just happened to be September. And I got my driver's license. And I'm the only person in Ohio to ever have the driver's license taken with a hat on because I was bald from head to toe.
Wow. That is crazy. It ends up taking it doesn't take your lung. It damages your lung from what I understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It destroyed my lungs so much. There's so much scar tissue. There's really no oxygen transfer. So I kind of relate it to Finding Nemo and his little lucky fin.
Yeah.
That little tiny fin. It's kind of like my little lucky lung in there, just hanging out.
It's like, I'm here. I'm not pulling my weight, but not to make fun of it at all.
Yeah, I'm here for moral support.
You guys are doing good. Keep up the good work. And then after that, you get on the other side of this. So how old are you once you feel like you get back to something that might be called normal?
That's a great question. I'm 45 now.
Okay.
And I still don't know if there is any semblance of normalcy.
Wow.
Just because I've decided that I wanted to take a different path after my cancer, and I didn't want it to define me. And I know so many people who go through their illness and their treatments, and they want to forget about it. Mm-hmm. Which I did. I went to college. I turned into Belushi from Animal House. I had a wonderful time. It was a $100,000 party, man. I was a guy swinging from the rafters, having a blast. But then in grad school, I really sat down and started thinking about my cancers. And anybody who goes through anything traumatic, it'll change you.
Yeah.
But you have a choice in how you want to see that change.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't necessarily say it's a new normal. It's just a new way of living.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you have a new normal now. And one of the things that, as I read different things, watched different things, there was this line that kept on reappearing. And I want to quote it to make sure I have it right. So I have my notes down here. So as I'm interviewing you, I look down and I'm looking away. It's because I'm referring back to my notes here. And this is the quote. It says, "I'm cured of cancer, but I'm not done fighting it." And I think a lot of people, maybe it's not cancer. Maybe it's something else in life. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a financial setback. Once they feel like they're on the other side of victory over that situation, they move on. And even before, you were saying, you're in grad school, you're thinking, what do I really want life to look like? And you're like, I don't want to go back. I want to make a difference here. What does that line, "I'm cured of cancer, but I'm not done fighting it," really mean?
Personally, I think it means, obviously, that because it's been such a long time now, I go in once a year for my checkup.
Okay.
Get my blood work back, and knock on wood, there we go. I haven't said this out loud yet, but I just got my blood work back and everything's good.
Wow.
So I see it as another year to live, and I get emotional talking about it. Just even saying, hey, I'm still in remission, and I'm going to be in remission for the rest of my life. So in the medical community's eyes, I'm cured. They just don't know what's going to happen because no one's ever had these two cancers. Yeah. So they consider me cured, but I still have to go in once a year, and I'm still fighting it. But I'm fighting it for other people now because I know what people are going through. I know what it's like to have to try to crawl from the hospital bed to the bathroom. I know what it's like, literally projectile vomiting all over myself because I can't make it to the bathroom in time because I physically can't move from the bed to 6 feet from the bed to the bathroom. So I'm fighting for all those people who are in a deep, dark place, who can't see the light. I want to help them see the light. I don't want to necessarily be the light. I want them to find their own light. I want to be the guide on somebody else's journey to help them fight. So I'm cured of cancer, but I'm not done fighting it for other people.
We're going to pivot a little bit here, but you get to a point where you're trying to figure out how can I be an advocate for others? And you make the first step of saying, I'm going to do Everest. What kind of led up to that in that journey? Obviously, climbing was something that even that pegboard, before you're 13, that's something that you love to do. So adventure and doing things seems to be part of your personality and who you are. But how do you go from cancer survivor to Everest, and obviously it doesn't stop there. The story doesn't stop there, but we're going to dive into that a little bit further. So talk to us a little bit about how you go from, I survived cancer, I went to college, had my crazy get it out, all partied out journey, and then you're like, what am I going to do? So how do you go from what am I going to do to I'm going to go do Everest?
When you're asking me that question, I hear my dad's voice echoing in the back of my mind when I was leaving Florida and South Carolina to go drive out to Colorado to train to climb Everest. And I can hear his voice like it was yesterday saying, we didn't get you through 2 cancers to go kill yourself on a hunk of rock and ice.
Wow.
So the question, begs, like you asked, why?
Yeah.
That you went through these 2 terminal cancers, beat the odds umpteen times over. Why are you going to go risk your life on a mountain?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, I was working on my master's and my doctorate in counseling psychology. I was going to be a psycho-oncologist, which is a psychologist for cancer patients. I figured I had a lot to offer because cancer is not just an individual disease. It affects the whole family.
Yeah.
So my mom, my dad, my brother, everyone went through it with me. And while I was there, that was the first time I stopped to look in the mirror and ask myself, who am I? What do I want? What are my core values?
Yeah.
And I knew that I was blessed with a mind and body, and I'm a firm believer in the mind-body connection. And I wanted to really make a difference. So I started thinking, okay, well, maybe I could go do something with my body and maybe run across the country and visit local hospitals and share my story with the patients to give them some hope. And I thought, well, that's a little too much running, too much training. But I kept thinking bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I finally came upon the idea and the notion that the human body can live for roughly 30 days without food.
Okay.
The human condition can sustain itself for about 3 days without water.
Yeah.
But no human alive can live for more than 30 seconds without hope.
Wow.
And I wanted to use the largest platform in the world to give back to the cancer community and anybody who's going through anything traumatic. Because like I said, it affects everybody. And that's when my brother and I came up with Mount Everest.
Okay.
I mean, literally the highest platform in the world. We just kept thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. And we decided, all right, well, where can we go from here? Where can we go from here? And it ended literally on Everest.
Wow. I stumbled upon this quote the other day, and I think it really sums up some of the things you're saying. It says, too many people are thinking of security instead of opportunity. They seem to be more afraid of life than death. And it's James Byron's that said that. And I just found that really profound from the standpoint of so many people face difficulties and then they choose to never live. Or so many people go and take a role because it's the safe or secure route and they never truly live. You go into fighting one battle to fighting towards another victory. You go from cancer to Everest, and you do that in such a way that you're trying to give back and share with others that, hey, there's hope, there's strength, there's opportunity here. Why is it so important to you to be that spark of hope? I think so many people just say, I want to live my life, that they don't think about how their lives impact others. But you are really intentional about that. And it's one thing to say, I've overcome cancer, I want to live a good life. It's another thing to say, I want to use my life to be that spark of hope. Why is that so important to you?
Well, I think going back to the quote that you had, I have one similar where I'm more afraid of not living than I am of dying. Because if you're not truly living, then you're already dead.
Yeah.
And so many people in the cancer world, in the cancer community, the cancer family, we'll use that word. So many people in the cancer family, after they're done, you're right, they want to get back to normal. They want to do these normal things. But I think that's because they see cancer as a bad thing.
Yeah.
And the way I look back at it, I see it as an opportunity. I was given this gift of life to do something with it. And if you want to see something and do something that's incredibly powerful, grab a piece of paper, turn it sideways, and draw a horizontal line across the piece of paper. Draw 2 vertical lines on the end of that horizontal line, and write the 4-digit year that you were born on the left side. Add about 80 years, because that's roughly the average. Add about 80 years to that, and write that 4-digit number on the other side. You can figure out where you are. That's your lifeline right there. It's incredibly powerful because now you can see what your life looks like. There's a start and there's an end. What you do in between is really what matters.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of so many things. They're afraid of failure. They're afraid of success. They're afraid of people laughing at them. They're afraid of other people's opinions, whatever it might be. But people who have gone through something traumatic, cancer, you have an opportunity to hit reset and be and do anything you want.
You don't stop at Everest. Do you jump right into like, hey, I want to do the seven summits, or do you go right into like, I want to do the Explorers Grand Slam? And I want to point out, I didn't know this before researching you. There are actually like two iterations of the Grand Slam. There's the last degree and just the Grand Slam. The last degree is pushing a little bit further. A lot of people do the half degree. Is that like a longitude or latitude marker? They just do the half, and you did the full. So I asked two questions there, which is never right to do. I'll go ahead and let you answer that second part of the question, and I'll jump back into that first question.
So I went from the 89th parallel to the 90th parallel. That's the full degree.
Okay.
Some people do the half degree.
Okay.
And I've actually been in touch with a couple people who flew to the North Pole, and they said, "Oh, I did the Grand Slam." Like, no, you didn't. You have to get there on your own volition. You have to get there on your own power. Like, It doesn't count if you get there on a helicopter or a snowmobile. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So there is a distinction there. And for everyone who's listening, and for you too, I really still think that the Explorers Grand Slam sounds like a Denny's breakfast platter.
Yeah. I think that if you get the Explorers Grand Slam legitimately, you should get the Grand Slam at Denny's for free for life.
For free for life, exactly.
I think that's a fair exchange and a great publicity thing for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea.
So you do Everest. Had you already at the point when you trained for Everest decided I want to do more than this? Or did you like defeat Everest and then go, hey, you know what? I don't want to stop here. And then did you go 7 summits, or did you just go Explorers Grand Slam, or like, was it one at a time? How did that unfold?
Great question. And looking back at it, Everest was first. That was the first big mountain in the 7 summits. I figured if I could do Everest, then, the rest would be downhill. The rest would be easy. Then I went on and did the highest mountain on every continent, because after Everest, I would say I got bit by the proverbial climbing bug.
Yeah.
And I had it in me where I was like, okay, because on Everest I took a flag that had names of people touched by cancer, and I left that at the top of the world, basically forever commemorating the struggle of cancer patients worldwide.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do the same thing on every continent. So now every continent, the highest point on every continent, has a flag that has names of people touched by cancer. And if someone's name wasn't literally on the flag, at the bottom it says, dedicated to all those affected by cancer in this small world, keep climbing. Mm-hmm. So after doing the 7 summits, I heard about this thing called the Explorers Grand Slam. And I thought, okay, well, why not just literally cover the globe in hope? So
you're 7th, 9th of the way there anyway. So
exactly. I mean, yeah. What's another? How long would it take? What's another 2 expeditions battling 80 below temperatures, and that sounds like fun.
Yeah. So you do South Pole and you end with the North Pole, right?
Finished with the North Pole a couple years ago.
They do a documentary. Was it 2018, 17? Called True North, the Sean Swarner story. I watched it over the weekend with my wife. Super fun to see it.
It was 80 below, and there were some times up there that one instance that you don't see in the film. My tent mate and I went to bed one night because we called the Russians, and we called the Russians on our satellite phone because they run a temporary ice camp up there.
Yeah,
and we always check in with them just to see what's going on, because I have helicopters going around, trips doing whatever. Mm-hmm. And we got off the phone and they said, "Oh, you guys have a couple of polar bears on the sniff," is what my English counterpart would say. We have polar bears following us, basically. There's a couple of them. And we're like, Jesus, what do we do?
Yeah.
And it was the first expedition I've ever been on where we took firearms.
Oh.
Because if it's between a polar bear and myself, and the polar bear is charging me, I'm not going to die. I went through so much of my life. I'm not going to have some rabid, hungry bear eat me alive.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready for sleep that night, and the sun never goes down. It just does a big halo in the sky. And we have this rifle between us. So we're practicing getting up and holding the rifle, right? Pointing it at the front door, picking it up, pointing at the front door, picking it up, pointing at the front door. And then he does the same thing. And I start laughing hysterically. He's like, "What the hell's wrong with you, man? There's a polar bear out there." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but we're practicing like the thing is going to come by, unzip the vestibule, stick his head in, and say, 'Hey guys, you got room for me?' Because we were just pointing it at the front of the sleeping, or the front of the tent."
It's so funny. That's so funny. All right, there are 9 expeditions out of that, and we've got to ask the obvious question, which is, which one was the most difficult?
Denali, hands down, the highest mountain in North America.
Yeah, Alaska, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go, I was going to say, if you ever get a chance to go check it out or climb it, it's beautiful. It took me 3 attempts. The first attempt, I literally fell 100 feet.
Wow.
The second attempt, we got more snow in 2 nights than the Alaska Range did the entire winter. And we started running out of food. We actually dug out one of the camps where we use our avalanche probes to find other tents. So we dug out our little quote unquote campsite and then made a trail to another campsite and then dug them out, made a trail to another campsite, dug them out. So if you could take an aerial photo of that, it would look like a cross section of an ant farm.
Wow.
So and then the third time I went up, it was beautiful, pristine, perfect weather, slight breeze on the top, and I made it no issues.
Wow. I have to say, I like adventure. I like doing things. I have a bucket list of things that I think there's 400 some odd items on there, and I've done a bunch of them. The highest peak I've ever done was in California. It was Lassen, which is just over 10,000. I remember the year I went, I go up and they had some problems with the trail with boulder slide and actually killed some people. And so they had moved the trail. And so you had to use crampons to go across ice, and it's right at the edge of the slope down and the cliff. And it's not high or anything like that, but I remember getting up there and having to use this alternative route, and it was slushy. And we didn't put the crampons on, and I almost lost it and went down about I think it was about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. It was scary, but it was such a fun. I've done that twice, so that's about as high as I've gotten. So I don't know what it's like to do what you've done, but I find it inspirational because I know what it's like to do Lassen, and that's hard enough. I want to pivot this last part of this first segment with 3 questions, and then we're going to get back into finding adventure for yourself. The first question is, how do you find purpose in what you do?
How do I find purpose in what I do? I actually have what I call a core values assessment.
Okay.
And it's at the beginning of a journal I've developed for a program called the Summit Challenge. And I review that quite often, so that way I can always make decisions based on what means most to me and most at my heart. So I think that really helps drive a sense of purpose. Knowing what my core values are will help me get there.
Love that. What is one challenge you're currently working to overcome?
Fear of podcast interviews. No, I'm kidding. One challenge I'm working to overcome would be to reach more people. To let them know about my story, to really make an impact on the world. Yeah.
And then finally, what's the next big dream, idea, or goal that you have?
2 of them.
Okay.
One is the Summit Challenge I mentioned, which will be ready here in probably in a few weeks, be ready to go to the public. And, 3, I take that back. I'm taking a group up Kilimanjaro in mid-August. And then the third one, which I'm working on as soon as everything gets back to quote-unquote normal, I'm going to be reaching out to corporations for sponsorship so I can run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Okay. I actually know some people that have done that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So it's I wouldn't say it's very doable. It's doable. There's so many different logistical nightmares to that one, just even with travel, let alone running... what is it, 140 miles, like over 100 and miles total over 7 days. It's crazy.
Yeah. I actually just grabbed my phone. I'm going to add it up real quick.
Yeah.
26.2 times 7, 183.4 miles.
Wow. So you can run from where I'm at to Philly or to DC or to New York and still have some miles left over in that run.
Yeah, maybe I might change my mind. Ask me that question again in about a month.
We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what Sean's doing, some ways that you can connect and go on your own adventure with what he's doing, and much, much more. We'll be right back. Hey there, it's Mike. And as a small business owner, I understand that it can be really hard to hire an employee or a big agency to manage your graphic design, web development, and video needs. But there's hope. Our friends over at Floxy are here to help you. They offer unlimited projects by a vetted creative team for a flat monthly rate. Video editing, graphic design, writing, web design, and more. And they're constantly adding new categories. Best of all, as a listener of Jumblethink, they're going to give you 10% off your first month. And they're going to include a 14-day money-back guarantee. If you are ready for new business cards, a new logo, a new website, they're there to help you. So head on over to floxy.com/jumblethink. That's floxy.com/jumblethink to get 10% off your first month and start getting the design and development you need for your projects. Now let's continue our conversation with today's guest, Sean Swarner. We are back with Sean. All right. Before we dive into this, there are going to be people listening who are just going, I've got to see the documentary. You have 2 books, 7 Summits to Success and Keep Climbing. You have a blog, which is a lot of fun. You have a lot of other cool stuff on there, including your Swarner expeditions, which are super cool. How can people find all of this and connect with you?
That's the easiest question you've asked so far. They can just go to SeanSwarner.com. Sean like Sean Connery, S-E-A-N, and Swarner, just like the Warner Brothers, just slap an S on the front. SeanSwarner.com.
Nice. Super cool. Now, we mentioned Swarner Expeditions. You mentioned, as we wrapped up the last segment, Kilimanjaro. I know a lot of people are rethinking life right now. COVID-19, the protests around race, everything going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknowns. And a lot of people are going, there's got to be more to life than what I've been living. Your expedition seemed to be a great entry into the world of expeditions, exploring, and adventure. Talk to us about that, and talk to us about the Kilimanjaro trip.
Oh, of course. And it's actually, it's an immersive expedition where I use my certified professional coaching degree or degree, certificate, whatever it might be, to work with people on Kilimanjaro to give them 7 days of challenges where they can actually get immediate feedback. And it's a life-changing, life-altering expedition. And I use the word expedition lightly because it's a hiking mountain. Anybody can make it. I took a 13-year-old all the way through to a 70-year-old.
Wow.
So it's possible. And whether you think you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. So if you're listening to this and you think, oh, I could never do that, well, you're right. You probably never could.
Yeah.
But if you think, after you hear this, thinking, oh, that would be a great opportunity, or something I would love to try and challenge and push myself, then absolutely do it. But when people are looking at things like that, and one of the biggest things that people don't really understand is, going back to COVID and the other issues. And I love this quote. What I say is about me. What you hear is about you.
That's really good. So
if you're offended by something, that tells you more about yourself than it does about other things. And if you're scared or afraid or anxious or fearful, whatever it might be, because you're reacting to something and you're blaming that thing, like just say COVID, for example, for your fear, COVID is not the reason toilet paper was flying off the shelves. It was our reaction to it.
Yeah.
A great example is you wake up late for work. You zoom down the on-ramp 90 miles an hour and boom, come dead stop into traffic. And then you're pissed off at the traffic, blaming everybody else. Oh, I was late because of traffic. No, you weren't late because of traffic. You were late because of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you always have a choice on how you want to react to anything in the world.
Yeah.
So if you can tap into that and you can understand you have that emotional intelligence to choose how you want to react in any situation, I don't care what it is, you know, you're going to have a fun, awesome, amazing life.
When COVID first happened, and there are going to be people who disagree with this, and this is fine. I don't really care. You know, it was a pandemic of COVID, but I think the deeper pandemic that was going on is the pandemic of fear. And it's people not realizing we have been sold this lie. And you probably have a perspective that is so based in the reality that most of us don't know because you had to stare death in its face. But most of us believe in this false reality of safety. We don't live in a safe world. We don't have safe lives. If anything, what we have right now are sheltered lives that are cocooned to the reality of what life's all about. And it seems like for you, that perspective is brightly highlighted that we are not guaranteed anything, that life is an adventure, and we have to take advantage of every moment we've got.
Absolutely. And I love that too, because, you know, how many people have you seen, or maybe you've done this yourself, where you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off, you wail on your horn, you flip them off, you get pissed at the world. Let me turn that around and ask you, if you were walking on the sidewalk and somebody did that, would you say, hey, and yell at them and flip them off? And yet, no, because you're right. We have this perceived security.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when you're in a car, you have that perceived security. Social media, you have that perceived security because you can pretend and act like you're somebody else. And I think it's because we have we've fallen away from our personal core values. Going back to those.
Yeah.
I really think so many people have that false sense of security. They have that buffer zone between them and somebody else where they feel like they can voice their opinions, which they can. You know, I have no problems with that. But when somebody says, you know, like say I'll post something and somebody says unfollow this guy because he's whatever. Out of 9,999.999 positive posts that I put out there, the 0.001% that I put out there, somebody's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. You know, we all have brains and we can all think for ourselves. And even if you have a difference of opinion, you can find that middle ground.
Yeah.
And going back to before I'm going off on a tangent too. Politicians, you know, when they're, you know, Democrats, Republicans, I don't care who you are. It seems like they all missed that class in kindergarten called sharing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not black, it's not white, it's gray. There are equal portions of give and take, and I don't understand why people don't see that.
I am with you 100%. I had that happen over the weekend. I posted something that seemed so obviously wrong and unjust, and somebody went off on it. It was about a bakery that got in trouble because their neighbor had a Trump sign up and they didn't do anything about it. And so people went after the business because the business should have known better. I was just like, where is the reality in this? Like, it was just the most ridiculous thing ever. And people are like, oh, Mike, you're so bad for posting this. They should have known better. They should have gone out and voiced their opinion and stuff. I'm like, they're a bakery. They're there to bake a cake. They're there to bake your pastries. If you want them to be politicians, then have them run for an election, but that's not what they're there for. They're to, you know, and it just drove me nuts. Anyway.
Well, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
No, I've never even heard of it.
You need to check it out.
Okay.
It's the director is Mike Judge,
okay,
which he's directed a ton of things. One, this might put people off. Beavis and Butthead was his first one.
Yeah,
but it's based on humans in the future if we continue going down in the direction we are.
Yeah.
You know, and after you're kind of in the middle, you're thinking to yourself, I thought this was a movie, not a documentary.
That's awesome. Definitely be on my weekend watch list for Father's Day weekend this weekend. You know, there are so many people, and we alluded to this earlier, who have lost the sense to live. They're walking dead. So much of what you do is about finding that place of adventure, but also sparking hope for cancer. Now, if somebody's listening right now and they're just like going, I feel stuck. I feel like my life is on autopilot. It's gray. It's boring. And I feel like I'm not alive. What would you tell them to do? What are the steps that they need to take to find that spark of hope, whether it's they're going through something hard or whether they're just simply turned off to actually living right now?
Absolutely. Human beings are a representation of repetition. And a lot of people say, you are what you eat. What about you are what you consume? Not necessarily food, but media, social media, television, anything you read. How many people do you suppose wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is they grab their phone, they go on the news, they go on social media, which is 99.9% negative.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, what do? They do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
They're negative. They're literally bookending their day on a negative note.
Yeah.
So that gets to them.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do is tell somebody, look at your patterns, look at how you're programming your brain, see those little things, because most people are on cruise control. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you're guilty of it too.
I'm guilty of it too often.
Yes, and really elevate your consciousness level to make decisions that you want.
Yeah.
Not based on what the media wants, not based on what advertising wants, not based on what other people want you to believe. So wake up in the morning and do something within those first 15 minutes that's positive.
Yeah.
Every morning I wake up, I grab my phone and I Google inspirational videos.
Yeah.
I start my day off instantly on a good note. And then I picture in my mind how the day is going to go. Yeah. Without turning on the news, without going on social media. So look at just the little details throughout the day.
Yeah.
Just start next week. Change one thing. One tiny thing. Just eliminate the news in the morning. Boom, done. You want to know, I need to watch the TV for the weather. You know what? Hey, Google or whoever you are, Siri, what's the weather today?
Yeah. I look at your journey and what I'm hearing is preparation and what you just answered. How you prepare your mind will help you get to the outcomes. If you're feeding it this place of negativity, of news that is just all negative, of social media that's negative, you get an outcome that's negative. For you, you've done these epic things that most people would say, I want to do that, or, oh, that would be cool, but I could never. How much of the success of those adventures has been based in preparation?
Well, I would say all of them. All the success is based in preparation, and not necessarily the preparation that most people think.
Okay.
It's not what I'm doing to get ready, because in my mind, I already begin successful. So climbing Everest, I didn't begin with, hey, what do I have to do to make it happen? For me, it initially was an idea, a concept, which anything that's ever been developed was initially an idea, a concept, a thought. Whether that thought's positive or negative is up to you. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, every night I went to bed leading up to the trip and leading up to the climb, I would visualize myself on top. So in my mind's eye, my brain already was wired to be successful on the mountain. Mm-hmm. And I worked backwards. So before I begin, I picture myself successful and I work backwards and I see all those things that might get in the way. And most people who, when they're working towards a goal, they have some speed bumps. They have some obstacles they have to go around, over, up, through, or whatever it might be. And if they don't have that emotional attachment on the end result and they don't think they've already accomplished it or they don't think it's possible, that little speed bump is going to potentially stop them.
Yeah.
But if you begin successful and you have an emotional attachment on that success, nothing will get in your way.
Yeah, such a good perspective. Now, here's something that's always bugged me about every documentary that I've ever seen, every story that I've ever heard about expeditions. And I hate to say it, your story kind of has this too, because it leaves me at the end looking at the story and going, how did they get out? What was the trip out like? Because just because you've arrived to the goal doesn't mean that there isn't more to the expedition.
Absolutely. And during my keynote presentations, I tell people, when I got to the summit of Everest, I looked around. Well, first of all, I was just thrilled. Yeah. And I looked around and I thought to myself, holy crap, I made it. But not a millisecond later, I kind of looked around and thought to myself, well, I have to go back down.
Yeah.
You're right. Because climbing is a round trip sport. Adventuring is a round trip sport. You don't get there and say, okay, poof, take me home.
Yeah.
I had to go down Everest, which is more dangerous than going up.
Yeah.
And when we got to the North Pole, we radioed the Russians again. Like I said, they love everything up there. I think they love two things: vodka and the cold. So when we got up there, we radioed to them, or called them on the satellite phone, gave them our GPS coordinates, and we went to sleep. And because of the currents, if you look at the world as a giant glass of ice water.
Okay.
The ice up top is the northern polar ice cap.
Yeah.
And what happens is you have these currents that flow underneath. So we actually fell asleep with one coordinate, and while we were sleeping, we floated 2 miles in a different direction. So yeah. I mean, it was going up there, and even on days we were just trying to trek up. One day we made 7 miles on foot, and we floated 2 miles backwards. So we essentially only covered 5 miles that day.
Oh my goodness!
So we had to cover 2 more miles to get to where we technically fell asleep. So we called them again in the morning, and they came to pick us up with the new coordinates, picked us up in a helicopter, and took us back to the temporary ice camp, dropped us off at the temporary ice camp. 2 days later, I think we flew out. The day after that, the temporary ice camp shattered and broke apart because the currents ripped the base camp apart because it's on floating icebergs.
Wow.
So that's why they don't put that stuff in they want to end the documentaries or the movies like that on a positive note, not a negative note.
So, okay, you just said something there that shocks me, that if you're hiking in to the North Pole, if the trip is if you didn't have the shifting currents, how far is it from that last degree to the 90 degree?
Well, let's just say 100 miles, round it up.
Okay. How much did you end up actually hiking?
That's a good question. Well over 100 miles.
That's frustrating to hear. I'm sorry. I just have to say that.
It is. It's frustrating being there, but it's just like on Everest. We were on a glacier at the foot of the Khumbu Icefall.
Yeah.
And the glacier moves 4 feet a day. We were actually camped and camping and climbing the mountain for about a month and a half.
Wow.
So add up, I've never done it, but add up, we'll say 45 days times 4. I guess I could do it pretty quickly. We would, every morning we would wake up, we'd be further away from our goal, albeit only 4 feet. However, 4 feet over the course of time adds up to a long distance.
Yeah. That is craziness.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's just something you have to do.
It's part of the journey.
Exactly. So you just kind of wake up and I have to take another step.
Now, you mentioned as we wrapped up the first segment, when I asked about what's one or the next big dream, idea, goal you have, you talked about doing the 7 marathons on 7 continents. There seems at a point in which the journey, the adventures you're going on aren't as epic as the one you came out of. How do you keep that in perspective? How do you find new adventures that excite you? How do you keep motivated when it's like, I just did Everest, which for a lot of people, especially in the climbing world, that's the pinnacle. Maybe what's the other one over there? K2. K2 might be the other one, So you go over, you do that, and for a lot of people in the climbing world, they'd be like, I've reached the pinnacle. What do I do next? It's all going backwards. How do you keep that sense alive? How do you keep motivated when maybe from an adrenaline perspective, it doesn't seem as epic or as big?
That's a great question. I think about that quite often. And I think it goes back to something my parents taught me when I was going through my treatments and then after my treatments. And it was, I never had to be the best. I had to be my best. So every day I wake up, I try to do something a little bit different than I did yesterday to improve myself. So in looking at that, from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint, any standpoint at all, people want to be quote unquote successful. They have this idea and this vision of success. But once they get to the top of the mountain, then what? Mm-hmm. There's always going to be something else to explore. There's always going to be another place to go. So instead of worrying about being successful, I just want to constantly succeed. I just want to find something new, something different. And I just want to constantly push myself and constantly be living and not just be alive.
Is there an adventure that gets you excited? I mean, the 7 continents, 7 marathons, as a person who used to run long distance for years, and I need to get back to it because I need to get healthy again. Different story for a different day. But as a person who's run, I know that those journeys I know when I did New York Half, I got super excited about it, loved it. When I did other longer runs and everything, got super excited, build up to it. And even though the distance may not change from race to race sometimes, still got excited about it. Like, what's that one adventure in the back of your mind that you keep on going, one day I'll get there?
I think, real quick too, I think with the marathons, I've done Boston, I've done a couple New York City marathons, and each adventure, each expedition is different.
Okay.
So I think that's how it remains fresh. So I've been up Kilimanjaro now almost 20 times, and it's not the mountain, it's the people. I think that really defines it and makes it more exciting. So I remember when I was 12, 13 years old, right before I got diagnosed, I was supposed to go to NASA Space Camp. And I couldn't go because I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's.
Yeah.
So what I would absolutely love to get in touch with Musk or Branson.
Yeah.
And head up to see what it's like to be in space.
I think that's super cool. That's super cool. And I think it shows us that so often we're limited by what we see as possible. Like you go, I look at you and I go, in adventure, you've done everything. And then there's this obvious answer that's like, you haven't done space. You haven't done the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean.
Exactly.
And it's, I think, so easy to limit what we see as possible because we limit what is possible. We go, Everest, top of the world. What else can you do? And yet it seems like you could probably never run out of adventures.
The world is so big.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because of technology and how we meet people, it's so small. So there are so many things out there to do, so many adventures to go on. And I see every time you bring up your hand, you're married. I recently got married as well. Yeah. So maybe that's the next big adventure.
Yeah. Is your wife an adventurer?
How
Can you answer that question without getting in trouble?
She was born and raised in Puerto Rico. So she's Puerto Rican. She's lived in Colorado for 4 years. And the idea of adventure for her and for her family is to potentially run out of rum while they're sitting on the beach. So we're working on that. She did go up Kilimanjaro with me last year. Oh. And with her company, Origins Accessories, she managed, with the sale of every purchase, it goes to support an orphanage over there at the foot of Kilimanjaro. And she managed to feed 90 plus children for, I want to say, 8 months with the sales that she had.
That's super cool. Super cool. No, my wife's idea of adventure is going to a cheap hotel.
There you go.
On a road trip.
with a black and white TV?
That would be like a step, I think, below camping at that. She's never actually gone camping, which is crazy to me.
Well, maybe you guys should go with us next year up Kilimanjaro.
I love it.
We celebrate with a safari afterwards, which is kind of like that's not glamping. That is, we stay in some seriously amazing places.
Super cool. I'll have to see if I can talk her into it. I don't know if I will, but maybe she'll let me go. I don't know. I want to wrap up this segment reminding people that you do have some really cool adventures. You have Kilimanjaro. It's not too late to go. It's not too late to train. It's not too late to sign up. How can they do that? Absolutely. They can just go to SeanSwarner.com, sign up, send me an email, or Sean@cancerclimber.org. Shoot me an email. And we're looking for people to go up, landing in JRO, which is Kilimanjaro International Airport, on August 11th. There's plenty of time to train. And I think by that time, we should be good to travel. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, it's rapid fire questions. There is a lot going on here at JumbleThink, and we want to keep you in the loop. So how do you stay in touch? Head on over to JumbleThink.com, where you can find our email newsletter and sign up. You can also find links to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Go on over. Let's be friends, and let's do this journey of chasing big ideas and dreams together. Now let's jump into rapid-fire questions with today's guest, Sean Swarner.
Mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact. Reposez votre bras et attendez. Restez calme pendant un moment.
We are back with Sean Swarner. All right. We have rapid fire questions. Are you ready for them?
I'm scared.
Okay. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An astronaut.
Love it. What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Just jump in and find some place to go.
What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
More understanding of differences.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to understand that I was a normal guy who did amazing things, so anything is possible for anybody.
Where do you find inspiration?
Everywhere. For sure, short answer, because inspiration is everywhere. Look outside. There's a flower growing out of the concrete sidewalk. Inspiration's everywhere.
What's one book you think every dreamer should read?
I remember I was going to promote my own book, but I'm not going to be like that. I remember when I read The Hobbit when I was 12 years old. So that stuck with me and really changed my life in a way that it opened up my eyes to imagination.
Love that. And there's nothing wrong with mentioning your book. Which is the book that they should read first?
Keep Climbing.
Okay.
That's my book. No, The Hobbit's amazing. And then they can go to SeanSwarner.com and pick up an autographed copy of Everest Becoming Unstoppable, which is part of the 7 Summit series you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. For you, how do you define success?
Being better than I was yesterday.
Love that. What is one trend you are currently excited about?
The trend of going back to restaurants and bars and enjoying a normal life again.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life?
Waking up every morning and not hitting the snooze, because if you hit the snooze, you're subconsciously telling yourself that you're not excited about your day.
This isn't one of the normal questions. I'm going to throw it in as a wild card. You've been around the world. You've done these adventures. What's the most beautiful place you've ever been?
Home.
Love that. What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
Long pause. That anything. I'm going back to when I was sick. In looking at how I could have told myself this or what I could have said to myself when I was sick. Just everything's going to be okay.
Love that. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I wouldn't have gone through the cancer and everything else, I would probably be an Olympic swimmer.
Okay, that's out of nowhere. I'm expecting astronaut or something like that, and I get swimmer. You would have been competing against Phelps then.
Yeah.
And our final rapid fire question. What is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Personally, I would love to have a catamaran going island hopping in the Caribbean.
That's cool. As we wrap up, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought. What would you like to say to all of us listening right now?
Well, to anybody who's listening right now, we might be going through some hard times, or you might be going through some hard times, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a temporary situation, not a permanent condition.
Sean, thank you so much for taking time out. I know that you say that your hope, your desire is to spark hope for others, but I just want to tell you that seeing the people that you've impacted, reading the stories as I've done research, it's not a hope. You've arrived at that, and you continue to do it. So thanks for taking a risk into an unknown adventure to inspire us all. It really has.
Well, I appreciate that. Very grateful.
Once again, I want to thank today's guest, Sean Swarner, for taking time out and being with us here on Jumble Think. What an adventure he's been on. And I hope that you will check out his website, go on an adventure with him, read his book, check out the documentary. Most of all, I hope you're inspired. Especially if you're dealing with cancer, he can be a spark of hope for you. You can check out the episode notes where you can find links to how you can connect with Sean and much, much more. I also want to thank our friends over at Floxy for sponsoring today's show. Floxy is your source for a monthly subscription to great design, video editing, and even web development. You can check them out at floxy.com/jumblethink. It's time to get those projects done, so check them out, floxy.com/jumblethink. Now, here's my final thought for you today. One of my favorite quotes that Sean said in today's show, something that he said, was adventure is a round-trip sport. So many of us are striving to reach a goal, and we're not thinking about the bigger picture of our dreams and ideas being much more than just arriving. It's about the journey to get there, but it's also about what happens after that. You never stop dreaming. You never stop having ideas, but many of us choose to check out. We check into the safe life. We check into routine. We check out of fully living. So I ask you this question. It's very simple. When was the last time you went on an adventure? When was the last time you stepped past comfort? When you stepped past routine? When you stepped into possibilities? When was the last time you engaged with that dream or idea? If it's been a while, maybe today's show can be that spark, that place of hope to inspire you to step out and start creating, start dreaming, start imagining with those ideas that you have. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's an honor that you would listen. Now it's your turn to get out there, to dream big, and to change the world around you.
Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.